We live in a society in which both genders, especially women, are constantly objectified. But first, what is objectification? Objectification is the action of degrading someone to the status of an object. A woman's worth is equated with her body's appearance and sexual function. This ideology is prevalent everywhere. In advertisements, women's body parts become sexual objects to create incentive for consumers. In books, films, and TV shows, women are given limited roles as seductresses, wives, or love interests. According to the Center for the Study of Women in Television and Film, women only comprised of 25% of protagonists in the top-grossing films of 2010 to 2011. The number has dropped to 22% in 2015. How do you know if someone is objectifying? Are only parts of the body shown? Does a person stand in for an object? Is a person interchangeable? Is the sexual availability of the person her defining characteristic? Is the person treated as a commodity? There is no denying that men are objectified as well. However, we live in a society in which the male gaze exists. The male gaze is the idea that the media is created to satisfy a male-dominant audience. Men are seen as a consumer, whereas women become objects to simply be looked at. 96% of sexually objectified women are of the female body. Women only hold 3% of clout positions in telecommunications, entertainment, publishing, and advertising. Women only make up 16% of all writers, directors, producers, cinematographers, and editors. Therefore, the media is largely controlled by men. Men have the greatest control over society's view of women. Society perpetuates the idea that the female must satisfy the male with her appearance to feel accomplished. Notice that the body language of women remains passive, vulnerable, and submissive, whereas men have a powerful and intimidating look.
Men don't live in a world in which they're likely to be raped, harassed, or beaten. At least straight white men don't live in such a world, whereas women and girls do. When women are objectified, there's always the threat of sexual violence, there's always intimidation, there's always the possibility of danger. And women live in a world defined by that threat.
After much research, I came to the conclusion that while biological tendencies do play a part, our society has amplified the extent of female objectification in the media. Current-day media normalizes dangerous attitudes of sexualizing women in a society in which we are already biologically programmed to objectify. Here's my question. What causes objectification? Are we hardwired to view women as commodities? Or has society conditioned us to objectify? Are women viewed as commodities by creation or culture? Biologically, men are hardwired to be attracted to beauty. According to psychologists Roy Baumeister and Letitia Ann Peploe, men are more sexually attracted to body parts and physical sex, whereas women are attracted to people and personalities. In making the best offspring, men look for good genes which correlate to physical attractiveness in mates. According to psychologist Alan Feingold, women find men of power, status, and talent as desirable. This explains why prominent athletes, rock stars, actors, and CEOs are desirable as mates. Attractive women are seen as desirable to men. These gender differences are prevalent in all species. Psychologist Kurt Gray studied men's brain activity in response to seeing sexualized images of women. Their brain evoked less activity in the area of brain responsible for intelligence and planning, known as the agency, and more activity in the area responsible for feeling and emotion, known as experience. This suggests that men judge women to be less intelligent and likable when they see body shots of women. When face shots were presented to the same men, the activity of agency increased, suggesting that the female body influences how men perceive women. Also, Sarah Gervais, a psychologist at the University of Nebraska, found that the brain processes images of men and women differently. There are two types of processes, local and global. Local processing focuses on the individual parts of an object. For example, you might recognize a house by its door alone, but you are less likely to recognize a person just by looking at their arm. The hypothesis was that if women are objectified more than men, people should use local processing when looking at pictures of women, such as focusing on their breasts. In this study, 227 men and women were shown pictures of a man or woman. The original picture was paired with another picture of the body part modified, such as the chest or waist. The second picture was either full body or zoomed in to the modified body part. Participants were asked to recognize the original picture. They were better at recognizing the original with zoomed-in pictures for women and full-body pictures for men. The study confirmed that when it comes to the female body, both men and women objectify it by focusing on its individual parts. There is a distinction between appreciating beauty and objectifying women. The media has exploited biological impulses of objectification to make profits. The media began to dominate the world during the 1960s and 1970s. News, magazines, radio, TV, and films enforced the representations of womanhood. In 1972, a study of women in advertising was conducted. Over 1,200 commercials were made in a period of 18 months, one-third of which portrayed women as domestic agents, half as household functionaries, and one-sixth as decorative objects. In 1995, women called for realism, which called for more diversity in media's depiction of women, rather than the typical young, white, attractive woman. Feminists, including Catherine McKinnon and Andrea Dworkin, argued that the male consumption of pornography reduces the perception of women as objects and tools of sexual pleasure. Such attitudes lead to rape and violence against women. Other feminists, Sandra Bartke and Susan Bordeaux, have argued that the female obsession with appearance causes them to objectify themselves, also known as self-objectification. Since the 1980s, people have been relatively quiet about objectification, even though the culture has been amplified. Images have become more extreme, advertisers have increased violence and sexualization. Technology has increased the number of images we are exposed to. In 1971, a person saw 500 ads a day. In 2011, a person sees 5,000 ads a day. People consume an average of 10 hours and 45 minutes of media.
Subjects act, objects are acted upon. To men, they're being sold this idea constantly that they are sexual subjects. They are in the driver's seat. It makes them feel powerful to see images of objectified women everywhere. And for women, we are being sold this idea that this is how we get our value and this is the way to become the ideal sex object, which is why instead of sex selling, these ideas of subjectivity and objectivity are being sold.
There is increased pressure on women to be young, thin, and beautiful. Women are transformed into cartoons using Photoshop. Women of color are only considered beautiful if they represent the white ideal, which includes light skin, straight hair, Caucasian features, and round eyes. The trivialization of sex creates the problem. Advertising makes battering, sexual assault, and violence against women seem okay. In other words, objectification attempts to justify violence against a person. The influence of advertising is quick, cumulative, and subconscious. Thus, ads sell more than products. Because objectification is so common around us, women tend to objectify themselves. Self-sexualization or self-objectification is when people view themselves as objects. women start viewing themselves as tokens of beauty and appearance. It causes depression, habitual body monitoring, eating disorders, depressed cognitive functioning, sexual dysfunctions, and loss in self-esteem. It increases female competition. It damages women personally, politically, and professionally. Here are some statistics. 53% of 13-year-old girls are unhappy with their bodies. The number spikes to 78% by 17 years of age. 80% of women feel insecure after viewing media exposure. As of 2005, 10 million women are diagnosed with anorexia or bulimia. Depression has doubled from the years 2000 to 2010. 17% of teenagers engage in self-harm. About 65% of women have an eating disorder. U.S. women spend about $12,000 to $15,000 a year on beauty products and services. The number of cosmetic surgeries under 19 years of age has tripled from 1997 to 2007. 1 in 6 women are survivors of rape or attempted rape. Thus, objectified images do not create the problem, but they normalize very dangerous attitudes towards women. Advertising is based on making people feel anxious and insecure. Creating awareness and addressing the truth is the best way to resolve the depiction of women in the media. Since social media is the quickest and most powerful way to reach audiences, tweeting, sharing a post on Facebook, or creating a hashtag can shed light on female objectification. There are several documentaries that expose the portrayal of women and girls in advertising and media. She Objects, Misrepresentation, and Killing Us Softly are great conversation starters and offer important messages. Promoting brands and companies that hypersexualize women will only worsen the problem. Organizations such as For Every Girl and women's media centers strive to hold the media accountable for sexism and call on industries to respect and empower women. Organizations such as the Gina Davis Institute on Gender in Media is a research-based organization working to educate and influence media producers to improve gender representation and diversity. The Dove Self-Esteem Project promotes body confidence to diminish the effects of self-objectification. Spark is a girl-powered, online activist organization combating sexualization in the media. Young girls are encouraged to join, speak out, and articulate strategies to control the harmful effects of objectification. Epidemic reports of anorexia, panic about idealized images of beauty for men and women, and objectification of female bodies challenge the progress that has been made. Societal sexualization of women stems from biological and natural impulses. However, the media has only made it worse. At the end of the day, it is not about who we assign blame, but about actively changing the media's representation of women. If the media must resort to violent and sexually offensive images to sell products, how much progress have we truly made?